Hi everyone, Stjepan here with game 66. The last game in the England Gambit was... okay, I played poorly. I was worse out of a bad opening and I deserved to get a worse position, but then in the endgame, completely winning. And I messed it up twice. Also, I just finished watching game 4 at the World Championship. I know that this is a few days later, but I was happy to see my repertoire played again. So in game 3, Dink played my repertoire, and in game 4, Gukesh played my repertoire, the London system with black. So a very relevant World Championship for me, which is normally never the case. Anyway, I'm at 2292. I'm hoping to cross 2300 soon. I don't know if winning this game will be enough. Probably not. We will see. In any case, let's not think about the points. Let's think about the position. Still, white has h4, knight f3, knight c3, g4, bishop d3, many moves, even c3. Okay, c3. Okay, offering an early bishop trade. I mean, I'm gonna play knight e7 because I would like my knight on f5. I also could have taken, which is totally fine, but it's a bit more active not to trade on your opponent's terms in this position, I think, because I do get the knight on f5 and my opponent's going to have to work hard to get rid of it. I want to go c5 next, maybe prepare it with knight d7, maybe just play c5. Okay, so my opponent wants to pin my knight. If I go queen b6, does my opponent give up the bishop? I don't know. So queen b6, bishop e7, bishop e7, bishop f5. Can I take on b2? Queen b2, knight d2. ef5. Whoa. Whoa! Kira! No! I'm sorry. There's someone at the door. I'm sorry about this. Hey! Polako! Kira! No. Excuse my dog, there's not much I can do. Lucia went to pick up a package, so... Kira! Hey! Name lajat. No, I'm sorry. Okay, Lucia is back. It should be fine now. Kira gets upset when someone comes to the house every time, unless it's someone she knows. And then, if I'm playing a game, I cannot really control her. So this happens. Okay, let's get back into it. Queen b6, bishop e7, bishop e7, bishop f5, ef5. I can always just take on d3 and then go queen b6. But I don't really like that. Queen b6, bishop e7, bishop e7, bishop f5, queen b2, knight d2. ef5, rook b1, queen c3, rook b7, I don't know. Queen b6, bishop e7, bishop e7, bishop f5, queen b2, knight d2, ef5. That looks too scary. I'm not gonna do that. It looks too scary because my opponent could then play e6 and disrupt my development completely. Okay, I'm gonna go queen b6 and then I'm gonna go c5. I'm not taking the pawn on b2 because now c3 is defended, so it won't make much sense, but I wanted to go queen b6 to unpin the knight to give myself the option to go c5, knight ec6, and the other knight coming to d7. Knight d2 is fine. I mean, my opponent doesn't have to worry about the b pawn. Oh, now the drilling is starting. Oh, this is perfect. I need to find a quiet place to play games. Unfortunately, I only have my home. Okay, but this is training for tournament conditions, which are worse than this because I'm stressed. Usually I'm tired during tournaments at some point. So this is good. It's good to have distractions. I'm very happy to see b3. b3 is an awful move. So let's go knight d7. My plan is to go c5 and knight c6. b3 is completely unnecessary because on knight d2, queen b2, there was rook b1, winning the b7 pawn and getting a crushing position. You never take on b2 if rook b1 is possible. Sorry about the arrows. Yeah, now this is okay. Very strange decision. I was gonna say this is slowly becoming a perfect Caro-Kann, but maybe my opponent's playing it a bit too risky. Because now I'm gonna go g6. The only way to play f5 would be to go g4. But I have bishop h4. And I can always castle queenside. It's not like... Okay, so why is this good? It's good because I don't have a light squared bishop and I have no weaknesses and I can still play for c5. So my worst piece has been traded off. c5 is coming. And I would say I have fewer weaknesses than white. d4 is going to be a problem throughout the game. Because when I play c5, unless my opponent plays c4, which seems unlikely, because it just drops the d pawn, I'm going to be better. So I'm expecting knight f3 instead of g4. Also, if the f-pawn moves and the king castles, the king is on g1, then there are ideas of playing knight e5. So my opponent has to watch out for that, because there's a pin on the d-pawn. I won one tournament game, I remember, in 2016 in Novi Sad, my second or third ever tournament. I won with that idea, knight takes e5. Okay, so now we have to calculate c5, c4, c5, c4. c5, c4. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm gonna play h6 to prevent knight g5. That's the first thing. Because if I castle queenside, then knight g5 is annoying. And I want my opponent to commit their king first. Because after castles on c5, there is no c4. And in some positions, I'm threatening to go g5. Yeah, I don't know what you guys think about game 4 of Ding Gukesh. It hasn't finished yet. It's a queen and rook endgame. I just stopped watching because I figured it was going to be a draw. I think Ding should be pushing for wins with white pieces. That being said, Gukesh should be pushing for wins with black. I think they are risking very, very little. Okay, g4. Interesting. Well, I don't really care about that. I'm just gonna castle queenside now, because there's no knight g5. So I don't know why my opponent is opening up the position. For whose benefit? I don't know where the white king is gonna go. Yeah, and the reason I played h6 is exactly this. Imagine if the pawn wasn't on h6, then knight g5 now. And of course, I don't want to take that pawn. Okay, so it feels like it's time to go h5 here. h5, g5, shuts the position down. How do I get my knight to f5? If I go h5 and my opponent goes g5, I want a knight on f5. Also, can I play f6? So if I go rook dg8, f6. Well, I don't know. I want to see what my opponent does. So king b8 is always useful. I'll have rook c8 and c5. I don't want to commit to h5 too soon. Because h5, g5 just kills the king side. So if my opponent decides to castle king side... Oh, interesting. Okay, now c5, c4 is interesting. c5, if takes, then I take with the knight, of course. If c4... Okay, I'm playing rook c8. I'm preparing c5. I want my other rook on d8. Okay, so my opponent is shutting down the entire board. Now I'm looking at the c4 square. So if I go queen b5 and my opponent goes c4 and I take it, they take with the knight. I go knight b6. I kind of like that. And if my opponent takes on b5, then I have knight b6 followed by knight c4. That seems interesting. I'm gonna do that. My opponent has weaknesses, and if I can get some pressure on the c-pawn. So if my opponent takes the queen, that seems very interesting. And of course, if my opponent plays c4, I take it, and either the knight comes to d5. Oof. I'm very happy to see this. Okay, so now the knight's coming to b6. Oof. This is my kind of position. My opponent's knight, of course, is coming to c5, but I can take that. Or I can play b6. So for example, knight b3, knight a4, knight c5, b6, knight a4, ba4, for example. Or knight b3, knight c4, knight c5, b6, knight a6, check, king b7 wins the knight. Oh, I love this position now. My opponent shouldn't have taken on c4. Woohoo! Rook c2 loses a pawn. We should mention that. To bishop b4. And what I want to do is I want to keep a piece on c4, not a pawn, of course. The knight on b6 also prevents a4, which would have been a good idea. I think knight b3 is absolutely necessary, because if my opponent doesn't play knight b3 now, I'm playing knight a4 and b6. So the knight's never coming to c5. I'm completely focused on the queen side. I still have to worry about f5 a bit. So I think now would be the time to play h5 to clarify things. Although my opponent does have h3. So I'm not really sure I want to open up the king side. So h5, h3, I don't think I'm taking. The main thing is not to allow a4 and to be able to kick the knight away from c5. Those are my goals. So let's say knight b3, knight a4, or knight c4. If then knight fd2, I go b6. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch out with knight c4 because a4 may be playable. Yeah. And if I go knight a4, then knight c5, b6, knight a4, ba4. Maybe there is b5, maybe. So knight c4. Maybe there is a4, maybe. Yeah, I don't want to allow a4. So knight a4, knight c5, b6. Knight d7 doesn't do anything, I think. Neither does knight a6. So knight a4, knight c5, b6, knight a4, ba4. What's that structure like? c4 isn't playable, a4 is illegal, b5. b5 I guess is playable, but I do have rook c4, although there's knight d2. I can also go rook c7. Okay, I'm playing knight a4. I don't want to go knight c4 and allow a4. Oh wait, maybe I can play on knight c5. Maybe I can get away with knight takes c3. Rook takes c3, b6. No, there's knight a6 check. Yep. Okay, so I go b6. My opponent takes, I take. I have to do this. There's no other choice. My opponent really should go b5, because if they don't, I'm playing b5. Oh no, I'm not. Yeah, I am playing b5, because the knight cannot reach c5 anymore. There's no knight d2, b3, c5, because I have a pawn on a4. So yeah, I am gonna play b5 if I get the chance. And then I also have bishop a3, followed by rook c2, and then bishop b4, targeting the weak c3 pawn. Oof, interesting. Interesting. So if I go b5, is there any way for my opponent to get to the c5 square with the knight? I don't think so. I doubt it. I'm playing b5. Because now I have the a5 pawn break. I have a fixed backwards pawn. Wait, where's the knight going? Where's the knight going? I don't know. So is it time for h5 now? Because h2 is hanging. h3 isn't really playable. Because I take and go rook h2. Yep. I'm expecting g5. Everything else seems very risky. Yes. Okay, now let's double up the rooks. Okay, let's double the rooks. And I'm gonna play a5 when I'm ready, and then I'll play b4. Okay. I still have a5. It's not a drawn position at all. I'm just gonna get my king closer first. Okay, now I have a passed pawn. So okay. Let's go rook c4. Let's tie down the b1 rook and the king, because if the king moves to, let's say, e3 now, I can take on b4. Okay, I'm gonna transfer my bishop to b6. Once I commit to a3, then it's very likely that I lose the pawn. Now I'm threatening to take on d4 with the bishop, so my opponent's going to have to be careful. I mean, there are multiple solutions to this, but still. I don't know what to do. I don't see a single pawn break. I don't think a3 benefits me. My opponent can play king d2, king d3. For sure. So the king is able to move. Maybe my opponent plays king e3 again after here, because then the rook is hanging. So he needs to play king d2 now. My opponent keeps leaving the game. I don't like that. Of course it's a draw, but maybe I should try giving something up to create some chances. Yeah. Plays the best move. So can we sacrifice? It's a bishop for 2 pawns if I take on d4. I don't like that. Yeah, I don't have enough. I definitely don't have enough. At least I should get my king closer, in case I do decide to do that. Maybe I can give up a pawn with f6. I doubt it. Yeah, I shouldn't have played h5. My opponent created a fortress and I have no way to make progress. Well, now this is a different story. So bishop d4, cd4, rook d4 check, king e3, rook e4 check, the king ends up on f3. Man, that's interesting. Bishop d4, cd4, rook d4, king e3, rook e4, king f3, rook c4. My opponent has to take. Yeah, I'm going for it because it's a draw otherwise. I know I may lose, but I don't care. If this was a tournament game, I wouldn't do this. I would go for a draw, but I have to try. I don't think it's completely hopeless. I have two passed pawns for a piece, and my king has a way into the position. Well, now I definitely have a chance. Oh, this is mate? No, it's checkmate. Oof, this was a really nice move. Oh, no. I didn't see this. Nice one. Yeah, I didn't see that. I'm gonna resign. It was a long shot anyway. King d3 is such a strong move. Okay, so obviously it was a draw. Obviously I shouldn't have done something crazy like this. Wait, this is equal? How is this equal? Okay, apparently there's no breakthrough. After d4, there's a breakthrough. I was trying to win, so... I mean, I knew I was risking a lot, but... Yeah, No games. No games, completely new position. Queen b6 correct. c5 immediately was correct. I should have gone c5, but castle's queenside is okay. I was afraid of c4. But it doesn't work. Why? There's bishop c5. Okay, so apparently I had nothing here. Yeah, I had nothing here. Okay, I risked a defeat and I lost. What can you do? My opponent played almost perfectly, 2 inaccuracies. Not that it was a tough game. I didn't play perfectly. What can you do? Hi everyone, Stepan here, facing a low-rated opponent, Kingmaker. So last game I lost because in a drawn position I had decided to sacrifice a piece because there was a repetition. And turns out it was actually equal, but I did manage to lose. Yeah, I'm not unhappy for risking a defeat and losing because you have to push. I saw a chance to win as well, so, you know. Not a good game though. Perfectly equal. And no pawn breaks, nothing left to do, so I had to break out somehow. Kingmaker 005. Only plays rapid and blitz? What? I don't know this move. Alright. I'm very tempted to take with a pawn. Because I want my d pawn to be solid, and then knight takes, I want to go e4. In fact, I want to go e4 whatever black takes with. Maybe not straight away, but this is a very weird structure now. I'm gonna go bishop g5 before I go e3 or e4. If my opponent castles, I go e3, bishop d3 first, and I slowly prepare e4. But if they don't, then I go e4. I think. I don't think I've ever seen this. Taking with the queen seemed suspicious because the knight would have recaptured on d5. c6. Why would you play c6? c6 makes 0 sense to me. I don't know what's going on. c6 is a very weak move, doesn't do anything. My opponent should have gone c5. Maybe not immediately, but you want to break my center. Now I just have a perfect center. So can I get away with h4? h4, hg, hg, knight e4, bishop e4, d4, queen e4. No. No. Now I have e4 and c4. And the bishop pair. I don't get what my opponent is doing. I don't think this is any sort of theory. Okay, so can I go knight e2, knight f4 now? Probably. Because if my opponent plays knight d7, I'm definitely gonna win the bishop pair. The light squared bishop. My opponent's play is very confusing. I'm just gonna go knight f4. My opponent's playing quickly, and I'm not sure they are considering the consequences of their moves. Very strange position. I mean, if I can grab this bishop. Okay. My opponent wants to go b5, so I don't think I should allow that. Knight e6, fe6, c4, e5. I can just take on d5. Yeah, I like that. What are you thinking about? Oh, c4, there may be queen a5. So I'm gonna have to watch out. So I'm gonna castle first, and then go c4. If my opponent plays e5, I go e4, because I have to prevent e4. Also, I may have been able to go e4 instead of c4 there. I'm not sure. In any case, on b5 I have e4, on e5 I have e4. And once the center blows open, my bishops are gonna become better. Okay, definitely e4. Definitely e4. My opponent doesn't have time for c5 because e5 is coming. And after d4, bishop e4, if c5, I just take on b7. Maybe g5 is playable. Maybe. But it seems very risky to do that. Because it leaves the g6 square undefended. And then I'd be threatening queen takes e6 and queen takes and queen g6. So for example, g5, bishop g3, knight e4, queen e4, queen e8 covering e6 and g6. I have rook fe1. Awfully scary. My opponent's structure is so bad. Also on c5 I may just have d5. And on e5 I have a passed pawn. b5? I don't know what's going on. My opponent wants to go c5 without losing the b7 pawn, but it still loses the a pawn. So I think I'll just go... Do I even need a rook on f1? Maybe not. Maybe rook fe1. Because now with c5 I still go bishop b7. And then I take on a6. And then I go d5. Maybe I just go d5. I'm not sure. But now I'm also putting pressure on e8. On e6. And if rook e8, then bishop g6. Okay. Doesn't queen b3 just win the pawn? Queen b3, I don't see a defense. So I'm playing queen b3. Oh, there's knight f8. There is knight f8. Oh, but maybe I take on f6. Oof. I mean, knight f8 may not even work. Because I can probably just take on e6. Wait a minute, knight f8, rook e6, knight e6. Rook e1. Queen d7, let's say. Bishop f5, there is king f7. I probably don't take on f6. Maybe I should. Or maybe I should take on f6. I'm not sure. Yeah, the drilling has started again. No! Don't do this to me. If you've seen my last game, then you'll know. Okay, I'm definitely not giving away the c5 square. So I don't want to take. I want a pawn on d4. So what if I just start doubling rooks? Yeah, I'll just go rook e2 because I don't really see a follow-up unless you play c4. And if you play c4, you're giving away some squares. Of course, I couldn't take on e6 because of c4. Okay. So my opponent wants to play knight d5. Okay. So is it time to take on f6? Bishop f6, gf6. Rook a e1. Yeah, my opponent has f5. Okay, let's just bring the bishop back. My opponent still cannot take, because I take on e7, they would have to play g5 first. And now maybe my bishop can reroute to g4. And maybe my h4 bishop can sit on e5. So maybe I blockade the pawn instead of trying to win it straight away. Okay, if the e-pawn moves, I have bishop f5. So what if I go d5? On knight d5 I take the queen. On e d5 I have bishop f5. On rook d5 I just win the rook. Okay, so d5, interesting. d5, g5 I can take on e6. Knight takes. Then I have bishop f5. I like that, I'm gonna do that. d5? What can my opponent do? I like it, I'm gonna go d5. Because the knight's pinned, the pawn is pinned. This is so funny. There are 4 defenders of the d5 square and I can still play d5. If my opponent plays e5, I still go bishop f5 and pick up an exchange. Ooh, d5 is a nice move, I'm so happy. My back rank is safe, although not too safe. If my opponent triples up, I'll have to worry about that. But not yet. d2 is covered, d1 is covered. Yeah, I was thinking about throwing in d6, knight e6, bishop f5. Does that work? I think it does. Okay, makes sense. But should I throw in rook ad1 now? Probably. Yeah, let's throw in rook ad1. Okay, now I think I have to save my bishop. I don't seem to have a choice. It will always be scary to take that pawn. Oh, okay. Well, whatever my opponent takes with, I'm gonna pin it. Maybe there is rook d8. Maybe. If I go queen d5, I mean. Okay, so queen d5, rook d8. Queen d8. Queen d8, rook d8, rook e2. I don't have time for bishop d6 winning the knight because I'm hanging mate. So I have to go king f1. Huh, I have king f1, attacking the rook. And then my opponent has to go rook e6, I think, to prevent bishop d6. Queen d5, rook d8, rook d8, queen d8, rook d8, rook e2, king f1, rook e6. Can I go rook d8? I think I'm going for this. It seems interesting. I think rook d8 is the only move. I don't see anything else. I wish my back rank wasn't weak. I think after king f1, rook e6 is the only move. And then rook d8, and my opponent has to unpin. Probably king f7. And then if I go rook d6, bishop d6, what's that endgame like? a5? I don't know, I would probably take the bishop over the knight, but... I don't know what my opponent's thinking about. Rook d8 is the only move. Has to be. Oh, I didn't see that. Same idea, just better. Okay, I think I have to go queen f3. I didn't see rook c5. Rook c5 is better than rook d8, but it's the same idea. Why would you play rook f6? Why? You had such a good position. My opponent's playing some very strange moves. I don't understand them at all. I don't want a repetition. I'm gonna play for a win, of course. My king is safer. I want to play h4 to give myself some luft and to weaken the g5 pawn. And once I play h4, there will be fewer problems to solve. Well, I see what the issue is. If my opponent trades, then it's really hard to move the knight. Maybe my opponent just goes b4. So takes, b4, takes, queen takes. And I don't really have rook d8 because I'm getting mated. Or I have to bring the rook back. b4 is becoming very scary. Although maybe takes, b4, I have queen b2. Maybe. I don't know what this does, so let's just make some Luft. Oh, if I take, there's rook takes g5, and my bishop's hanging. If it comes back to g3, or if it stays on g3, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch out for that. My opponent's down to 2 minutes, so... Okay, so let's take. I have to watch out for this pin. Okay, so let's unpin immediately. Now I have ideas with bishop e7. For example, if my opponent plays h5, I have bishop e7. Okay, threatens mate. I can see that. Bishop g3 feels like the safest move. I mean, maybe there's rook g5 after that. No, I think it's fine. Next, I want to go rook e7 and start putting pressure on my opponent if I can. This is a very tense position. Maybe h4 was an overreaction, maybe. Okay, but I'm going rook e7, nevertheless. Is there a tempo to be gained by the queen? I don't think so. If rook g4, I'm hoping queen d8 is good. I'm hoping queen d8 is good. Because I have rook e8 and bishop d6. What about rook d6? Rook d6, if the queen moves, I take on g6. I mean, I could also just go rook e8 and on queen e8 go rook e8. And then how does my opponent rook d8? So rook e8, queen d8, rook d8. How does my opponent defend? Maybe rook d6 works. Let's look at it again. I have plenty of time. Oh man, I also have... Don't I also have queen d5 check? Wait a minute, queen d5. If king h8, I have bishop e5. Am I getting mated? Rook g2. King f1. Rook g1, king e2. No, this seems good. So wait a minute. Queen d5 check. Where is the defense? Queen f7, I take the queen. Knight e6. Can my opponent really go knight e6? Queen d5, knight e6. Rook e8 check. Let's say king h7. Because again, king h8 loses to bishop d5. Oh, whoa. Queen d5, knight e6 is the only move. Oh, there's also queen e6. Yeah, but I can take that with the rook. Okay, so wait. Queen d5, knight e6. Can I not just go rook e1 and pick up the knight? Queen d5 check, knight e6, rook de1. It seems to work. I'm gonna do that. No, queen takes e7. My god. Oh, but maybe I can throw in rook e8 check. Very complicated. Queen d5, knight e6. Rook e8 check. If king f7, then queen d7. Seems like the end of the game. If king g7, bishop d5. If king h7, if king h7, what do I do there? Queen d5, knight e6. I don't see it. Queen d5, knight e6, rook e8, king h7. I don't see a good follow-up. Okay, so let's say rook d1. Queen d5, knight e6, rook e8, King h7. Only move. Rook d e1. The knight is triple attacked. It has to move. If it goes to f8, I don't see it. But I have to try. I think this is the best attempt. I don't see anything better. On knight e6, I'm gonna go rook e8 check, king h7, and rook e1. Because I may have tricks with bishop e5 and rook h8 mate, but I'm... Wait, gives up the queen? Why? He had knight e6. Was knight e6 so bad? I don't know. This is now just game over. Feels like it. I'm just up a piece. Makes no sense to continue playing. Yeah, my opponent should have played knight e6. Why not knight e6? Yeah, I'm successful at blockading the pawns. It doesn't work. Because if takes, I go c4, and on a4 I go bishop b2. All right. Why didn't my opponent play knight e6? Very confusing. I don't know. Strange position. I wonder if queen d5 was the best move. I was expecting knight a6 and I couldn't see a straightforward win, but maybe I had bishop e5, rook h8 mate at some point. Also, I don't know why my opponent's playing on. I don't know. Well, okay, I mean, we will analyze knight e6 without the engine. Because I really wonder whether there was a defense there or not. Why is my opponent playing on? Okay, I mean, it's their choice. I'm not gonna criticize my opponent for playing on. Okay, you can have my bishop. You can have all the bishops in the world. Going for stalemate. I'm not gonna allow stalemate. I hope. Why would you play on? It's not gonna be stalemate. I'm gonna make 3 queens to try and say that playing on may not be okay. I'll literally make 3 queens. I don't care. Let's see if my opponent resigns. Because it's not going to be stalemate. Constantly has these 2 squares. You still have the same squares. You can hope for stalemate, but it's not going to happen. Because another queen would have to be controlling b6, and it's never going to be controlling b6. Still has a5. And b6. Not resigning. Okay, I'll mate you.